All right, let's get straight to Sirius XM radio host Pete Dominic and our excellent panel. Pete?
Thank you, Wolf Blitzer. Let's get right to it. Likability. What is it? Why does it matter if we like these candidates that we're voting for? And how do we measure it? Donna, what is likability versus favorability, by the way? I have no idea the difference.
Well, it really goes to the heart of, do you want to have a beer or a soft drink or even share a hot dog or a hamburger?
A yoo-hoo, in Mitt Romney's case.
Or a po' boy sandwich, you're fully dressed. No, it's really about trust. It's about, do you trust this person to handle these difficult issues, especially the presidency? It's one of those decisions that most Americans just don't walk into the voting booth and say, you know what, I like this guy, I don't like this guy. It's really, I trust this guy. I believe he will follow through on his promises.
Well, I think it's a lot more than about trust. I think there's been a change in campaigns in the, in the last few years. We know these guys now. We know these candidates. We know what we know what they eat. We know what their dog's name is. We know what their children's name. We know everything about them. And so you wanna like them, because if you don't like them, with as much as we know about them, it's hard to vote for them. And I also think, a lot about the presidency has to do with likability. It helps to be likable if you're negotiating treaties. It helps to be likable if you're dealing with foreign diplomats. It helps to be likable if you're trying to rally the nation back after some sort of tragedy.
What was Mitt Romney's dog's name again? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Something Irish.
Lucky likability, yeah.
So, I mean, well, first, we've known a lot about Mitt Romney. We've been hearing a lot from Mitt Romney for years, and he's been net unfavorable all year. Even now, as the race is tightening, he still has some struggles with likability. So I think as people have learned about him, they continue to be unsure if they like him. And in focus groups, as a pollster, I do a lot of focus groups around the country, and we often ask people things like, which candidate would you want to go to the amusement park with your kids or your grandkids? We ask questions like that, projective techniques to tap into likability. But ultimately, it's more than just that. It is about which candidate do you feel likes you and wants to fight for people like you.
I think there's truth to that, but there is also sort of a chicken and the egg issue here, right? Where voters want to vote for candidates that they like, but they also want to like candidates that they're voting for. And so one of the things that we saw happen with Romney's likability numbers after his impressive performance in the first debate was that they went up. And did they go up because people suddenly decided, oh, I guess he wasn't such a bad guy when he closed those factories down running Bain? No, they went up because he seemed more like a competent, potentially successful president. And so people maybe said, well, I guess I should like him. So I think we can, you can parse which comes first. I would be hesitant about putting too much weight on the sort of have a beer with end of the spectrum. I think if a candidate comes across as a plausible president, people are going to say they like him.
No, for 90 minutes, he didn't say half of the country feels entitled to food.
Well,
well, that helped too. That's true.
I just think, though, I wonder sometimes how much, I talk to, people every day on the radio, I just wonder how much we should be maybe measuring hateability. When I think about,
well, look,
but when I think about 2004, though, right? I mean, liberal Democrats weren't inspired and excited about voting for Mitt Romney. They just hated President Bush, and there's a lot of similarities here.
This is the secret, actually, of democracy, right? That democracy, we like to talk about it in sort of gauzy terms, but there is a sense in which every election often comes down more to who you hate than who you like, and you end up coming up with reasons to like your own candidate.
When President Obama wins re-election, the one thing we can be assured of is that the same people who dislike him and hate him right now, they'll be upset because they've been upset for the last 4 years. But, I do think that there's a lot of stock that we put in campaigns and making sure that the candidate comes across as accessible, somebody who's honest, straightforward, somebody you really would like to have as your neighbor.
And certainly we saw the Obama campaign put a tremendous amount of resources and stock into the likability issue. They spent millions of dollars over the summer when Mitt Romney had no money that he could access because he wasn't the nominee yet. They spent a ton of money on TV trying to make him dislikable, and it worked for a very long time.
It did, but it also, I mean, this is what's interesting, right? It also maybe hurt Obama's likability numbers, too. I mean, there's an interesting dynamic here with
after the Republican primary. He never.
No.
He was disliked. He's been disliked for a long time.
I completely agree. I'm just saying that if you look at the Obama campaign, right? If Obama wins this election after running what I think even the Democrats on this panel would agree has been a slightly more negative campaign than in 2008, it will at least partially confirm that even voters always say they don't like negative campaigning, right? but it does often work. And that sort of cuts against the idea that it's all about likability.
Wouldn't it be great if it had nothing to do with likability and if it had everything to do with their policies and what they presented? Wouldn't it be great if it didn't matter that much about their family and what they're interested in and so on?
No, you want to see a jerk on TV for 4 years?
I would rather see a jerk that was smart on policy. I'm not going to have a beer. I'm not going to have a beer with anybody.
Policy. There's more to leadership than being smart on policy. There's how you work with others, how you negotiate with Congress, how you bring people together and talk about difficult issues in a way that galvanizes the country. And those things are different from whether or not people agree with a long list of policy descriptions.
Well, and you're not going to get, I mean, this goes to Anna's point, right, that you're not going to get your sort of policies through if you can't actually sit down and work with people in Congress. And I think one of the things you hear about some of the struggles the president's had sometimes getting legislation passed is that he's not as thrilled as Bill Clinton was, say, to get on the phone with a congressman or a senator. And that, too, I think, it's not likability per se.
Campaigning
it's more
today requires sitting down with your friend Oprah, requires going to The View, requires going to Jay Leno, going to Dave Letterman.
Yeah.
You're
and
in
someday
trouble.
coming on unsolicited advice.
Right. You're talking about getting on the phone with members of Congress. I mean, many of them are not, you know,
likable themselves.
Right. All right, we got to take we got to take a break. And during this break, I want everybody watching to decide who they think on our panel is most likable. We'll be right back here on Unsolicited Advice.
Donna.
Vote for me.
Vote for you.